All right, let's talk quickly about the MCP server generative AI environments available in Qrvey. Now, because this is an MCP server environment, you can connect to it from a couple of different ways. There's available embeddable prompts through Qrvey as a client directly, or you could use other third-party MCP clients, such as Claude by Anthropic or any of the other clients that can connect to MCP servers directly. So let's talk about how these work from those different environments. So first, let's explore something like Claude. You can communicate directly. For example, I can check to see if we're connected. And based off of the environment, it'll tell me the types of capabilities I have. So creating charts, working with dashboards, looking at data. So all of that is available. And again, because this is just your standard prompt-based LLM tool, I can communicate exactly how I need. All right, so I could ask it what data I have, and it's going to explore through the Qrvey MCP interface and search for the tools that it needs to return valid results. So in this case, it's reviewing my data sets, my connections, and based on how I'm connected and my user credential, it's going to show me what I have access to. So in this environment, I have two data sets, including healthcare practice data and some airlines consumer data. And I can use these to dig into in more detail, creating charts, building dashboards, or anything else. Maybe I want to see what the key metrics are in one of my data sets. And again, these questions can be fairly open-ended because we're relying on the power of the LLM along with the MCP communication to derive some of the information that it needs. So as you can see, connecting to Qrvey, running some aggregation queries, and then based off of the results, we can analyze some of the key metrics that it identifies. So it's going to return, some details, some data, crunching the numbers, and giving us some hopefully interesting outputs that we can work with. So in this case, identifying some metrics. It's also going to look at, maybe some other breakdowns of detailed data and information. And even inside Claude, for example, you can see how it would sort of take that data and visualize it for me. It's also summarizing that information. So in this case, summarizing the data set, different types of locations, volume, encounters, etc. And again, now I can dig deeper, or I can have it build, dashboards in Qrvey that then would be, something I can publish, make interactive, customize. So yes, build me a dashboard in Qrvey, and I can use that now as part of it. So it's going to create the charts, assemble them, and turn that into a usable dashboard that I can have access to within the Qrvey environment. Looking for the tools, styling, applying all of the detailed information, and again, building that out as part of my Qrvey environment that I can work with. So getting the visualizations, 3 KPIs, has some charts to work with, dashboard creating, inserting the elements, defining the visual components. And as you can see, these are all the steps that it's taking. So it's returning Qrvey specific detailed information as it's going through, generating the dashboard, inserting the different components into the dashboard, and creating the necessary outputs that it wants to work with as part of that. And then it can also publish the dashboard. Now it's going to tell me it's available. I've got metrics. I've got charts, and the dashboard is fully published within my environment as part of that. And then I can access it. So again, launch the link to view the level of detail that I have within that dashboard environment that we would have access to within the Qrvey solution here. And again, you could have it build and make adjustments as part of these different environments. But yeah, we can actually see it inside Qrvey. Here's the one it just created. You see all the different metrics and details. You can go into design mode, and then anything here can be customized and configured. Maybe maybe I don't like this, the way this looks. You can change anything about, the presentation look and feel. Whether it's, colors and styles to, maybe I want to adjust this specific dashboard view, change the styles, change the orientation of any of the presentations, remove labels, all of that fully configurable and editable as part of the Qrvey environment. And again, being able to launch these tools in, fully interactive spaces that we have worked with available through the Qrvey environment directly. Now, we talked about accessing all of this through Claude. You can also access it directly through the embedded AI assistant prompts inside the Qrvey application as well. And again, it understands sort of where you are, so what you're looking at in context and application. So if you click into data, for example, you can start working with specific data sets or specific contents and applications. And just like we did in Claude, we can ask for questions or details. So for example, maybe I just want to ask for some risk analysis. So it's going to look at the data and it's going to analyze some of that information and then return any of the key risks that I might have. And again, these are fairly, as you can tell, open-ended questions. So I'm relying on the AI assistant to sort of determine the different types of outcomes and results based on what it identifies within the data and the queries that it is executing to analyze and provide some of the detailed results. In this case, based on things like risks or other factors that I want to apply within the information. And as you can see, it's going through various steps and ultimately returning some key risks that I want to pay attention to within my data set. So it's going to go through, it's going to summarize all of that detail, visualize some of that detail, and then ultimately at the end, obviously it's going to then give me some additional information here. So you can see summarized my high, medium, and low to medium risks, identified areas, and even some actions that I could take on top of that. It's offering to build me this into a dashboard, or you can dive deeper into any specific concern. Maybe compare year versus last year, And so again, being able to do things like slice and dice the data without having to generate custom filters. It's going to query the data, look at the information, and in this case, it's comparing, because I only have up to, we're in March, so I only have up to Q1, so it's a partial year, so it's going to compare like to like timeframes, and then obviously go in and create some detailed breakdowns of how we compare. So yeah, it's going to look at the volume. How much has it changed or improved year over year? So all of that is pretty interesting as it's comparing the level of detail that I have within that information. So all of this is, again, part of the types of things that you can ask these tools to work on, whether it's just basic analysis and generating metrics, identifying risks, checking to see how it's performing over time, or doing some detailed comparisons. And as you can see, it went through and summarized everything. So all that is giving me results that I might choose to take actions to, and then looking at some prioritized trends that I might need to take immediate action on as part of the level of detail. And yes, please build this into a dashboard. And so we can wrap it up by sort of saving this into, again, kind of the more traditional dashboard style outputs that we'd have access to within published Qrvey environment that could then be shared and interacted with and edited even by kind of the more traditional editing tools and design environments that you're embedding your Qrvey products into. And so again, going through the steps, reading the information, creating the dashboard, and as we let this finish, we'll then be able to go and click into and explore the data that we have. So it's going through and generating KPIs, created the dashboard, and building all the charts required to work with that data in parallel. So we can see all of this generated content. Even if it runs to maybe some challenges, it will, again, identify additional changes that it can make. As you can see, even generating the outputs that it's working with as part of the level of detail. So it's created some KPIs, and then it can create the rest of the charts as part of the dashboard display. So again, building those charts, defining the details, doing year-over-year comparisons, all of that is baked into the level of detail that we have as part of the Qrvey platform. And then it's going to obviously turn that into a dashboard finally. There we go. And as you can see, it's going through all the steps to define sort of the level of detail that we want to see within these different outputs as far as sort of the risk assessment that we want to run. And now that it's created all the charts, it's going to generate that into the actual Qrvey dashboard layouts. And we can even view, if you want to see all of the visual components that were generated, all of them are available there. Dashboard is live. We've got the risk assessment year over year, and it's telling me exactly what it built. So again, here's our dashboard layout. We can adjust anything we need, whether it's reducing or changing the size of any of the data or any of the presentations. You can, again, you see the summary up at the top. We have all of these visual elements and components that are kind of generated here for us to work with. And if we need to, again, being able to do anything from changing the look and feel to any of the details, with things like themes, or even just going in and adjusting anything we want to see as part of the display of any of the outputs. Maybe you want to look at 100% charts, or maybe you want to look at different style of presentation, right? So you have a lot of flexibility to kind of customize these things in different ways, as part of the detailed breakdowns that we're working on within this dashboard output and interfaces.